You've been lied to your entire life about what makes a woman fall in love. You've been fed fairy tales, Hollywood scripts, and fake success stories on social media. You've been told that love is about looks, about status, about the size of your bank account, or the charm of some smooth pickup line. But let's tell the raw truth. None of those things are enough to capture her heart. They might catch her attention for a moment. They might buy you time. They might even get you in the door, but they will never keep her. Because what makes her fall in love goes beyond appearances, beyond money, beyond surface level games. And that's why so many men fail. They chase, they beg, they perform, and in the end, they lose. They spend their time trying to impress instead of becoming the man a woman can't help but be drawn to. And here's the sting. If you don't understand this, if you keep believing the lies, you will keep repeating the same painful cycle of attraction, rejection, and disappointment. The truth is harsh. Most men aren't losing women because they aren't good looking enough. They're losing because they lack substance. They're losing because they're weak in spirit, shaky in identity, and unsure of themselves. And weakness is the biggest repellent there is. Women are biologically and psychologically wired to feel safe with strength. And the moment she senses you don't have it, her heart closes. You may still entertain her. You may still be around her. She may even keep you as an option, but she won't love you. That kind of love, the kind that consumes her, the kind that makes her loyal, the kind that makes her stay, that only goes to the man who understands what most men ignore. Think about it. How many men do you know who keep trying to buy love with gifts, dates, and flattery? How many men try to prove their worth by working harder for her approval than they do for their own growth? And how many men collapse the moment they sense she's pulling away, flooding her with desperate calls and texts, believing that effort equals love? That's not love. That's insecurity dressed up as devotion. And insecurity is poison. It suffocates attraction. It kills desire. It turns what could have been fire into ash. Here's the wake-up call you've been avoiding. Women don't fall in love with effort alone. They fall in love with essence. They fall in love with a man's energy, his presence, his certainty, his unshakable grip on who he is and what he stands for. They fall in love with a man who doesn't beg for approval, but commands respect by the way he carries himself. And you can't fake this. You can't paste confidence on like cologne. You can't pretend to have depth while living an empty life. A woman can sense it instantly, and she will file you away as temporary, as replaceable, as just another man. The reason this truth is so uncomfortable is because it leaves no room for excuses. You can't blame it on her. You can't blame it on your past. You can't blame it on society. If women keep slipping away, it's because you haven't built yourself into the kind of man who captures more than attention. You capture loyalty, admiration, and trust. And that only happens when you strip away the lies you've been told and start living with raw honesty. The men who keep losing in love are those who don't realize the game isn't about chasing her. It's about becoming the man who doesn't need to chase at all. The man who attracts effortlessly because his presence speaks louder than words. The man who doesn't crumble when tested, who doesn't fear walking away, who doesn't measure his worth by whether or not she stays. That is the man who flips the script. That is the man who women can't ignore. And here's the twist most men never see coming. The less you depend on her validation, the more powerful your influence over her becomes. If you can understand this, if you can let it sink deep into your bones, your entire view of love changes. You stop trying to prove yourself. You stop begging. You stop wasting energy on shallow tactics. And you start to realize that love is not about what you give her. It's about who you are when you stand in front of her. You become the man she doesn't just want in her life, but the man she feels she cannot live without. And once you step into that truth, the chase is over. Because she won't run away. She'll run toward you. Certainty is the first key, and it's the one most men completely fail at. A woman can sense uncertainty faster than you can say a word. It's in your eyes, in your tone, in the way you hesitate, in the way you second-guess yourself. The moment you walk into her life carrying doubt like a heavy bag on your back, she knows. And here's the truth. If you doubt yourself, she will doubt you. If you question your worth, she will question whether you deserve her heart. A woman will not give her love to a man who doesn't stand firm in who he is. She may play with him, she may use him, she may keep him around for attention, but she won't fall in love with him. Confidence has been twisted into some fake image of loud arrogance, cocky behavior, or flashy displays, but that's not what certainty is. Certainty is silent. It's calm. It doesn't need to scream because it doesn't need to prove anything. It's the energy that says, I know who I am, I know what I bring, I know what I will accept and what I will never allow. That kind of certainty is magnetic, and it pulls a woman in because she feels the strength behind it. But here's the harsh reality. Most men are walking contradictions. They talk about confidence but live in fear. They brag about strength but collapse under pressure. They say they know their worth but lower their standards just to get a text back, just to avoid losing her, just to keep her around a little longer. And in doing so, they reveal the very thing that kills attraction: neediness. A woman cannot and will not fall in love with a man who needs her more than he needs his own self-respect. Because love isn't built on weakness, it's built on strength. Think about how often you've hesitated in front of her. Maybe you wanted to say something but stopped yourself because you feared how she'd react. Maybe you wanted to make a move but held back because you worried about rejection. Every hesitation, every second-guessing moment, every time you shrink, she feels it. She may not call it out, but her heart registers it and it chips away at her attraction for you. She doesn't need a man who hesitates. She needs a man who decides. The brutal truth is this: certainty isn't about convincing her of anything. It's about convincing yourself. When you walk in certainty, you no longer chase her validation. You no longer measure yourself by how she treats you. You no longer rise and fall based on her moods. Instead, you move with an inner strength that says, I choose you, but I don't need you. And that difference is everything, because the moment she realizes you don't need her approval to feel powerful, she feels drawn to you. The moment she senses that your identity isn't tied to her acceptance, she begins to respect you. And respect is the foundation of love. Here's a shocking realization. Women don't fall in love with men who worship them. They fall in love with men they respect. Worship may feel flattering for a moment, but it quickly turns into suffocating weakness. Respect, on the other hand, builds desire. Respect makes her look at you differently. Respect makes her trust you with her heart. And respect is only given when you show certainty in who you are. So stop confusing loudness for confidence. Stop confusing arrogance for strength. Stop thinking that showing off is the same as being sure of yourself. Real certainty doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't need to be noticed. It speaks in silence, in the way you stand, in the way you act, in the way you refuse to bend when your values are tested. That's the certainty that wins her heart. Ask yourself this: when was the last time you made a decision without worrying about what she'd think? When was the last time you stood firm in your standards, even if it meant losing her? When was the last time you looked at yourself in the mirror and knew without question that you were enough, whether she stayed or not? If your answer is never, then you've found the reason she doesn't fall in love. And until you fix it, nothing else will matter. Certainty is rare. That's why women chase it. That's why they fall for it. That's why the man who has it never struggles with attraction. Because certainty isn't something you pretend to have. It's something you become. And once you have it, she won't resist it. Because deep down, she wants a man who knows where he stands, who doesn't tremble, who doesn't flinch, who doesn't need the world to tell him he's worthy. That's the man who wins her heart. Attention is the second key, and it's not what you think it is. Most men mistake attention for constant texts, non-stop calls, endless compliments, and over-the-top gestures. They think if they flood a woman with proof that she's on their mind, she'll reward them with love. But the reality is brutal. That kind of attention suffocates her. Doesn't make her feel wanted. It makes her feel smothered. Love isn't born from desperation. It's born from the kind of attention that cuts through the noise, the kind of attention that proves you actually see her, not just the surface version she shows to the world. Here's the problem: most men are so distracted, so wrapped up in their own lives, their own insecurities, and their own hunger for validation, that they don't really pay attention. They listen half-heartedly. They nod while thinking about their next move. They notice the obvious, but they miss the subtle. And here's the ugly truth. If you don't notice the little things, if you don't tune into the details, she knows you're not really present. And when she feels unseen, she doesn't connect. Without connection, there's no love. Real attention is rare. It's the kind of focus that doesn't flinch, doesn't wander, doesn't drift away. It's the awareness that makes her feel like, in that moment, she is the only person in the world who matters to you. And that kind of attention is magnetic. Because women aren't starving for men who can buy them dinner or shower them with compliments. They're starving for men who can make them feel understood. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. Giving real attention means you have to step out of yourself. It means you stop obsessing over what you're going to say next, or whether you're impressing her, or whether she's going to like you. Real attention means you stop performing and start perceiving. You listen not just to her words, but to what she's not saying. You notice the pauses, the tone shifts, the small details that reveal who she really is beneath the mask. Most men miss all of that because they're too busy trying to win her instead of trying to understand her. Let's hit you with a harsh truth. If the only thing you ever notice about her is her beauty, you will lose, because beauty fades into background noise. She's been admired 1,000 times before you and will be admired 1,000 times after. What she craves is the man who notices what others overlook. The way her eyes light up when she talks about something she's passionate about. The way her guard drops when she feels safe. The subtle changes in her mood that reveal more than her words ever could. That is where love grows. But don't get it twisted. Real attention isn't weakness. It's not becoming her doormat or her therapist. It's not hanging on her every word with desperation. Real attention has balance. It says, I see you, I hear you, I understand you, but I don't lose myself in the process. It's a strength, not a surrender. And that strength makes her feel valued without making you look desperate. Here's another uncomfortable truth. Men who don't give attention lose women not because they aren't attractive enough, but because they make her feel invisible. And when a woman feels invisible, she will always find someone who makes her feel seen. That's why men get replaced. That's why the boring but nice guys get left behind. Not because they're bad people, but because their attention was shallow, lazy, and uninspired. Attention is not about quantity, it's about quality. You don't need to give her every second of your life. You just need to give her the kind of focus that can't be faked. 5 minutes of pure presence is worth more than 5 hours of distracted conversation. And when she feels that presence, she feels something deeper than attraction. She feels significance. And significance is the soil where love takes root. Ask yourself, when was the last time you gave undivided attention to anyone without scrolling, without distractions, without drifting into your own head? When was the last time you looked beyond what a woman says and tried to understand what she means? If you can't remember, then that's the reason women don't open their hearts to you, because love requires presence and presence requires attention. This is why attention is a trick most men never master. They think it's about volume when it's really about depth. They think it's about being available 24/7 when it's about being fully there in the moments that matter. They think it's about giving her everything when it's about giving her something real. And once you understand this, you stop chasing her with empty gestures and start drawing her in with presence. That's when she starts falling. Not because you overwhelmed her with effort, but because you gave her the one thing almost no one gives her, the feeling of being truly seen. Boundaries are the third key, and they separate men who get respected from men who get walked over. Here's the harsh truth. The man who bends to every demand, who tries to give her everything she asks for, who sacrifices himself at every turn, he's not winning her heart. He's destroying his chances, because no woman falls in love with the man she can control. She may use him, she may keep him around as a safety net, she may even enjoy the convenience of having him at her service. But love, real love, that never grows in the soil of weakness. And here's the bitter pill you have to swallow. If you don't respect yourself, she won't respect you either. If you don't value your time, your energy, your standards, then why should she? Women don't fall for men who give them everything they demand. They fall for men who make them rise to meet their standards. Without boundaries, you are nothing more than an option. With boundaries, you become a man worth choosing. Most men think being nice is the path to love. They believe that endless compromise, constant agreement, and blind loyalty will make her see their worth. But niceness without strength is just weakness in disguise, and weakness never inspires desire. When you give in to everything, when you let her set the terms, when you make her the center of your universe, you may think you're showing love, but what you're really showing is that you've abandoned yourself, and nothing kills attraction faster than self-abandonment. Here's a brutal realization. Women test boundaries constantly, not always consciously, not always with bad intentions, but because they need to know who they're dealing with. They need to know if you're a man who stands firm or a man who bends at the slightest push. Every time you fail that test, every time you let disrespect slide, every time you let her manipulate you with tears, anger, or silence, you teach her one thing: you can be controlled. And once she learns that, her respect for you dies. And once respect dies, love follows. Boundaries are not about controlling her. They're about controlling yourself. They're about knowing what you will tolerate and what you won't. They're about protecting your time, your energy, your standards, your values. And when you live by those boundaries, you show her that you are not desperate for approval. You show her that you value yourself first. That is the man she respects. That is the man she trusts. That is the man she can fall in love with. But here's what men get wrong. They confuse boundaries with aggression. They think standing firm means being harsh, rude, or domineering. That's not strength. That's insecurity dressed up as power. Real boundaries don't need to be loud. They don't need to be dramatic. They're simple, calm, and immovable. It's the quiet refusal to accept what doesn't align with your standards. It's the silent confidence to walk away rather than settle. That kind of strength doesn't push women away. It pulls the right ones closer. The truth is that boundaries act like a filter. They push away the wrong women and reveal the right ones. The women who only want to control you will leave when you refuse to bend. The women who want to use you will vanish when you stop giving without limits. But the woman who respects strength, who values integrity, who craves a man she can trust, that's the woman who will lean in when she sees your boundaries, because she knows they protect both of you. Ask yourself this: how many times have you allowed yourself to be treated as an option? How many times have you tolerated behavior that made you feel small just because you were afraid of losing her? How many times have you sacrificed your own dignity in exchange for her attention? Every time you did that, you trained her not to love you, but to use you. And unless you break that cycle, you'll repeat it again and again. Boundaries are the line that says, this is who I am. This is what I value. This is what I will and will not allow. Without that line, you are lost. With it, you are unshakable. And when a woman sees that you are unshakable, she can finally trust you with her heart. Because deep down, love isn't about giving her everything she wants. It's about being the man who refuses to lose himself in the process. That's the man who earns her respect. That's the man who earns her love. Unpredictability is the fourth key, and it's the difference between being unforgettable and being invisible. Most men think that being safe is the smart move. They think if they stay consistent, predictable, and easy to figure out, she'll see them as reliable. But here's the cruel truth. Reliability without excitement is boredom, and boredom kills attraction faster than anything else. A woman may respect predictable men, she may appreciate them, she may even say they're nice, but she doesn't fall in love with them. Because love isn't born in routine, love is born in the spark of uncertainty, in the thrill of not knowing what's coming next. The uncomfortable truth is that predictable men are everywhere. They repeat the same lines, they follow the same routines, they give the same responses. You know exactly what they'll say, exactly what they'll do, exactly how they'll act. And here's the problem: predictability is forgettable. If she can figure you out in 5 minutes, if she knows exactly how you'll react to everything, you've given her no reason to feel excitement, no reason to feel curiosity, no reason to crave more. She doesn't chase what she already understands. She only chases what challenges her. But don't mistake unpredictability for chaos. Being unpredictable doesn't mean being unstable. It doesn't mean being reckless. It doesn't mean playing childish games. Real unpredictability comes from depth, from having more layers than she can uncover in 1 moment, 1 week, or even 1 year. It's when she realizes you're not a shallow pond but an ocean. Vast, mysterious, and impossible to fully map out. That's what pulls her in. That's what keeps her hooked. Here's a harsh reality. Most men think being predictable is safe because they're terrified of losing her. They think if they never take risks, never say anything unexpected, never challenge her thinking, they won't mess things up. But that safety is exactly what ruins them. Playing it safe isn't strength. It's fear disguised as wisdom, and fear is never attractive. Fear makes you boring. Fear makes you dull. Fear makes her drift away into the arms of someone who makes her feel alive. Unpredictability, when it's real, communicates power. It tells her you're not performing for approval. It tells her you're not trying to fit into her expectations. It tells her you move to your own rhythm, and she can either join the dance or step aside. That energy makes her curious. And curiosity is the spark that keeps love alive. Here's the shocking truth you don't want to face. Women crave a mix of stability and surprise. They want a man who can make them feel safe, but never too safe. A man they can trust, but never fully predict. That tension between security and excitement is what creates obsession. Too much stability and she gets bored. Too much unpredictability and she feels unsafe. The man who masters both is the man who never gets replaced.